Hmm. Greetings, dear ones. It is Friday the 18th of March, and we're just coming out of St. Patrick's Day. And today at 3:35 in the morning, the full warm moon was very brilliant over the East Coast. When I looked earlier in the evening to go out and sit and moonbathe, it was very clouded. But then later on in the wee hours of the morning, the clouds moved away, and we had a very powerful bright moon that actually did keep peeking in and out of the clouds. Today's title for Ancient Future Wisdom, episode number 132, is the elders. And the question was posited in the title of whether elders are actually wisdom holders or anchors to the old way. And I've been in preparing for today's episode. I, sit in meditation frequently throughout the week and, listen for the information and for the helpers that are here to work at this point in time, as well as looking at some of the collective consciousness evidenced themes in our world. And I have a bouquet of flowers. I won't turn the camera around and show it today, but I will post pictures later. And it was very, very interesting that as I'm working with this subject of elders and ancient wisdom, etc., these flowers are 2 weeks old and still not one has dropped a leaf or a bloom. Some of them have gotten dried. There's some wild roses, which is interesting because the rose is part of the energy of our helpers today. But I kept taking pictures and expecting it. Usually I go and buy flowers once a week. And this one just kept going and going and going. And granted, it has a carnation in it, which is a very long lasting, and two very large white mums. Again, like I said, I'll post some pictures. But 2 weeks is a long time for a bouquet just of regular flowers. And it was, as I sat with it, I'm looking, into its information. And our elders are a very special and particular group of beings on this planet. And we have lost so many over the past couple of years to the COVID virus and many other adjunct or subsequent illnesses. Oftentimes because of challenges with even treatment, when people are not able to go visit, which they weren't for a long time. If someone is semi in and semi out, then that feels like abandonment. I know that actually happened to my father when he went to the hospital, and my brother, who lived very close, was unable to see him on a regular basis, and he felt like he had been abandoned. And when he finally got home, he literally was so overjoyed to be back in the heart of his family that he had a very quick heart attack and passed away at 93. So no, I'm sorry, 95. So he was trying to make it to 100, and one of the very vocal elders in our world, he lived in England. He was 101 years old, and he passed away this week. And he was a teacher of what his experience in the Holocaust and how that happened, and he was the only survivor in his family. And he went to schools and he went to different speaking engagements to let people know what it was actually like, because he lived it. And that's one of the dangers of losing so many elders so quickly. Their ability to relate direct experience is vital to our remembrance of our history and our ability to learn from that and to feel what they felt, so that it's not just some dry information in a book. There have been many periods of time throughout history with plagues and droughts, etc., that many elders have died. In the Native American culture, very often, if there is difficulty with food shortages or some other major challenge, elders will, what is referred to as, drop their robes, which is kind of purposefully saying, I need to leave, so that there is more for the younger. And this wisdom and courage and knowingness is quickly being lost, not only because of illness at this point in time, but because we have, particularly in Western cultures or in the United States, have distanced ourselves from our elders. We put them in places that are tending to their physical health, but they're with the challenges of dementia and Alzheimer's, etc., our memories are falling away. And on the other hand, this can be seen as a very good thing, because we are moving in this evolutionary leap to a very different place, to a different way of being, and elders can hold the old way of being, anchor it into the planet, that to an extent where it doesn't permit the future to come in. I know that sounds a little bit strange, but we're in that process of evolution, and it isn't just one great big change to another. It isn't like, wham, everybody's going to awaken and move into a new way of being from one that we have been studying for hundreds of thousands of years. But it is necessary that old way be anchored for the time being. There are also bridges that hold both the old way and the new way, and there are those that are planting and creating pathways for the future. And I don't mean just physically and humanly. So there's an energetic that happens. There's an energetic that each person holds. There are energetic patterns of culture and human psyche and human nature that are held within each person. And when we see this number of elders fall away, again, it's serving a dual purpose. And as I said, there have been other times in history through plagues. Most of the time, wars really affect the younger generation, of course, because they're the ones that are sent off to war. But in times past, when there have been conquerors or people coming through and taking over other countries, much like we are seeing in Ukraine, people were completely just wiped out and killed because, particularly older people, because they served no purpose. If you were young and healthy, you were taken as a slave. If you were fighting them off, you were killed. So it really strikes me at this point in time how many times throughout history elders have left through illness or, as I said, that type of war, and what that's opened up for the future. And I have sat in meditation for Ukraine every single day, and just, if you think about it, in your city, in your local city, what would happen if you had to evacuate quickly? We have family members that are older, don't move as quickly, need equipment, need special medications. What is going on over there with the elders? There's no place for them, and those that are sheltered are being oftentimes bombed and slaughtered in that way. So for a country to lose, again, that many people in general, but particularly the elders, because they can't hop on a train and with a backpack and just kind of go. So we're seeing this loss of information, and we are also seeing the loss of old lands and old forests. And that's very dangerous also to our future. Forests hold a great deal of history, as well as many passageways and portals to other worlds. And I'll touch on that in a moment. But what I do want to bring forward is the way history needs to be held so that we can learn from it. And right now there is a concerted effort to change history books, to limit the amount of information and books that are going into schools for children to be able to learn what has gone on and help us come up with new ways where war is obsolete, where brute force is not part of our everyday culture. And if we don't have that history, if we don't have that information, if we don't have the accounts from the Holocaust, if we don't have slave words of what it was like and what that experience was, we cannot truly know and feel into that to be able to make the changes that we want to make or need to make in this evolutionary leap. And as I said, there has been the destruction of old forests. The Chernobyl forest in Ukraine, which was deeply affected by the crisis in the Chernobyl nuclear plant years ago, is on fire right now, purposely or by just bombs and accidentally caught on fire, but it is on fire. And these ancient forests around the world are not only placeholders for geological, ecological, biological information, but as well they are ancient locations of ancient cultures. By ancient, I mean potentially those that we only see in books and stories and movies nowadays. Very famously, we know that through Joseph Campbell, how important and significant the myth is to our culture, because the myth holds information or ideas, metaphoric and symbolic ideas and concepts of what can be. Just to read a quote from him, because again, this is so important. And of course he taught of the hero's journey, which is what we're all going through as a culture and individually. It says, by Campbell's definition, Mythology is a collection of metaphors, or, quote, an organization of symbolic images and narratives, metaphorical, of the possibility of human experience and fulfillment in a given culture at a given time. So when we lose the old stories throughout history, up until very, very recently, the last few centuries, the only way that information was passed was verbally. And in these stories and in these myths that held the human possibility, as Campbell says, but also the human breadth and width of experience with other cultures that we no longer see. And the Earth is a grand central station of everywhere in this universe. There is a portal, there is a passageway, there is a doorway, there are openings to so many other existences right through this planet. And within ourselves, we hold those portals, we hold those connections. And it was very interesting that as I was, again, seeking information for this talk today and drop in, so many different articles and information about time crystals. The whole theme of time has been going on for the past couple of weeks. Of course, those of us who are in the states that had to time change, and we had an unprecedented occurrence this week in that there were very few no's in the entire legislative body for the permanent staying of daylight savings times and daylight savings time. In other words, if all goes well, we will never have to change our clocks again here in the United States. So many people have wanted that for so many years, and it's always gotten stopped by, large numbers of politicians, congressmen, etc., but this time not. So it's very interesting that even prior to that, the theme of time was here. A lot of different articles have come across my desk regarding time crystals, something that was just theorized in 2012, and now here we are actually creating them to use for holding quantum information in computers, and there are so many other applications that can occur from this discovery, and MIT is actually creating them. So it's gone from something that was seemingly magical, seemingly impossible, into actual physical reality in a very short period of time. And we're talking 10 years. That's insane. And we're also recently, again, cosmologically, we have the ability, we're looking back in time in the universe in a way that we have never been able to do before. Again, very, very recent. And on top of which, it is turning inside out or upside down many of the theories and ideas that we have had about the universe, and pretty much undermining the whole idea of the Big Bang, which again throws our whole basis of reality into flux, which is wonderful. The information that's being found archaeologically, so many huge discoveries in the past year or two. Ancient cultures, whole cities have been found in Egypt and other places all around the world, giving us information not merely about other cultures in the past, but more about who we are and how we came to be. Again, finding out whether there were other types of humans prior to our ancestors that brought us to this modern form of human. So it's an absolutely not only intense but dynamic and exciting and powerful time that that you've chosen to be here. And we're seeing the blatant outpicturings of what's gone on throughout history in Ukraine right now, and in the attempt by very few political leaders attempting to throw us into the past way of tyranny and dictatorship and suppression of the people, the masses, control, power over, brute force. This is all falling away, but it cannot fall away until and unless we see it so evidently that we no longer choose that way of life. And it's really mirrors back to us to look inside and find those aspects of human nature within us. So if you've been triggered by what's going on in the Ukraine, if you've been triggered by the wanton destruction of the earth through, for greed, purposes of greed and accumulation, that's been going on, the effect to our climate, etc. You've chosen to be here at this time to not only make a difference, not merely in your physical life, in activism or, choices that you make, but also in your own internal transformation and transmutation. One of my clients this week was working with her abilities as an old soul, her abilities as an aspect of Earth, her abilities connected galactically. And these aren't just words. When you work with your own personal transmutation, you are able to access those portals. That's what we do in private sessions. It literally opens up an avenue to the particular existences that you lined up to help you evolve as a soul, but evolve this planet as well. And one of the strong avenues that have been coming through, of course, is the cycles and the seasons of the earth. We are coming up on equinox on Sunday. I am hoping to have a gathering on Sunday evening. Please keep your eye open for that. Today is the last full moon of the winter season. It is the worm moon, which was named because you can start to see the movement of worms in the soil and how vital that is. You're seeing here on the East Coast for sure the robins that are going after the worms, and that movement, that waking up of the soil, waking up of the earth. There are little buds very apparent on all of the trees in my yard, front and back. And this eternal cycling of the earth, when it is in balance and when it is able to follow through on that, allows for us to be here, allows for humans to eat and breathe and live and thrive. And so it is really important that we each tap into our own connections to the earth and the cycles and the phases of the moon and the seasons, and as reflections, again, to give us an opportunity to know ourselves more. One of the other, I know this sounds a little strange, but one of the other helpers this week was the wild rose. And the wild rose has always been a symbol of love, but it's also a symbol of truth. And as I was kind of in and out of sleep this morning, I was listening to a particular channeling of one of my favorite teachers. And he was speaking about truth and how, we believe there to be absolute truth, and how we need to hold on to those absolute truths, or that there are groups created around what they decide are absolute truths, and the danger of that. And as I mentioned earlier, the distortion of truth or the elimination of truth in the attempt to control information or control literature and what is available to our children to study and learn from. And the elimination of that history through losing our elders and their stories and their voice and their holding of that wisdom that comes with many, many years. So the wild rose is so strong, and I literally, it's a warm day here today, looking through my closet, decided, and I'm told every day what to wear. I know it sounds a little odd, but I've listened for so many years. I do enjoy dressing and clothing, but I very definitely hear what I'm supposed to wear. Oftentimes it is a particular color for my benefit, or it needs to be brought into the world or emphasized, so I'm anchoring that in. And I literally pulled this blouse and recently received this scarf, and as you can see, it is of roses. Both my blouse, I don't know if you can see that, it's tiny little roses. So this synchronicity, this constantly listening and messages and information is going on all the time. And that's what magic is. Magic is a constant back and forth of working with all the different aspects of the earth, and you receiving information symbolically and metaphorically through by listening, by learning that language. And again, that's something that will be learning, or I'll be teaching in the upcoming 3-month course of personal and planetary redesign, because we forget this language. As children, we kind of understand it, and we speak in a non-verbal, in a non-linear way. And when we disconnect from parts of ourselves, we disconnect from those abilities. And so the process of transmutation and metamorphosis that my clients go through allows them to reconnect. Their intuitive abilities come online, if you will. They are able to now relearn the language that of synchronicity and magic. And magic is very, very strong. I've explained before that there are many different flavors of magic. We see that throughout literature, throughout movies, and one of those that is strongest right now is the energy of the Narnia books. And the Narnia books are beautiful, a beautiful outpicturing of a particular magical world. And it is through different portals, some of which are in these old forests of old growth, some of which are in the ancient trees on our planet. Avenues, passageways to these other worlds. Those of you who are familiar with the Tolkien books, at the end of the Rings series, the elven people went on ships on their sea and disappeared into another plane of existence, leaving the world to humans, or to the world of man. This is a very accurate depiction of how many magical worlds that were existent on this planet at different points in time, and men literally interacted with, learned from, worked with, until such time as we decided to study this particular aspect of duality and polarity, where it was about power and conquering, and one particular gender holding that power, a small group of men holding that power, deciding the fate of others, And now in this evolutionary process, we're moving into a time where that is obsolete. It is not sustainable. It is not going to be able to continue. And so we have an opportunity to choose anew, to evolve human nature so that those lower level aspects are evolved out of the species, and we are then able to interact with, be it other magical worlds or be it beings from other planets, because that's going to happen in the very near future. And there will be technology, there will be abilities, there will be skills that seem to us magical, but are in fact their way. And these lands that we have passageways to are being eliminated as and through climate change and the destruction of old land, old forests. So it is vital that we not lose those elders as well. So we have a lot of energetics right now, a lot of helpers here, the worm moon, the spring always moving from death and destruction of winter to the rebirthing and life-givingness of spring. We have the images and the energy and the beings from a particular story, if you will. It could be also that C.S. Lewis was tapped into his own inner connections to another existence and was merely relating what he was seeing and experiencing. The energy of magic that allows for very rapid change, very purposeful, very deliberate change, and in such a way that one would never have actually imagined. So that is actually occurring right now with the horrors and the example of what's going on in Ukraine and the ensuing actions and awarenesses and involvement, and so much is going on that would not take place if it weren't for that situation. So again, we have the wild rose that's bringing in love and truth to this mix. We have time. We have the ability to move back in time or see time past through the universe and the information that's coming forward with that. We have the archaeological information and gifts and abilities from many different cultures that we see as, not modern, and therefore, what could they know? There is information held there. There is wisdom held in those lands, in those places, in those buildings, in those structures that are being discovered. And we also have the many elders that are still with us, for us to be able to capture their information, for us to be able to learn from them, for us to be able to listen to them before they can no longer speak, either through losing their voice to illness or because they are passed over, they are crossed over. We have the gifts and the energy of old forests and trees, which are the center point to so many different ecosystems. And magic in its many different forms. Every culture around the world has their own form and flavor and history with magic. And so all of that is in this synergistic mix. All of that is alchemically combining along with what's going on around the world, what's going on with you individually. Where are you choosing to not learn from your history? I have a client I was working with last night and have done for quite some time, and she continues to resist working with her own past and letting her past go. She is one that has held on to that wish, that wanting, that hope that things somehow become different, and they continue to not, and she is literally experiencing pain, physical pain, emotional pain, mental pain, as well as her family, because of this insistence to not let go of the past. So, as I said, in many ways, anchoring in the past is not necessarily a good thing. Let us anchor in and bring in that wisdom right now that our elders hold and have passed down to us. Let us anchor in the seasons and the cycles of the earth and her wisdom. Let us anchor in the directions: east, the west, the south, and the north, which is the placeholder for the elders, for wisdom, for patience. The step just before moving on. Let us also anchor in the direction of above with our cosmic family and all the knowledge that is there in all the different bodies of cosmic formations, cosmic energy. Let us also anchor in the below, the hidden inner kingdoms and worlds. And as always, we have beautiful examples of duality that allows for this full out experience as humans. And the purposefulness of that. Let us anchor in the elements: earth, air, fire, water, representing our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual bodies, that they may be in right relationship with one another this day, in this practice, this energetic practice. And as always, I invoke universal spiritual law to oversee and regulate all that occurs within us individually and collectively. even as we ourselves are rewriting and modifying and evolving those laws. For as we grow, as we know ourselves individually and collectively more and more, so too do human and spiritual laws modify. Imagine a world where lawfulness in regard to brute force or purchasing of guns and weapons of destruction are no longer. Allow yourself to sensate your body, your energy field, for all of these energetics are blending, mixing, alchemically combining for just the right recipe for you. To aid you, to guide you, to lead you in your evolutionary process. Not through your mind, but through your body, through your energy field, through your internal world, through your own innate wisdom, which is the direct channel to your soul. Allow yourself to sensate rather than vision or think or imagine. Those are very limited. To the human mind. What you experience within is the sum total of all history. Not only human history, but the history of this universe. Your soul's history. For you are an ancient soul. And you can experience those aspects of yourself within yourself. Allow yourself in this moment to simply sensate, feel, experience what is occurring within you without having to label it, categorize it, define it. Keep allowing your wisdom to lead you down and within. For everything that has been mentioned today, is part of who you are. Whatever age you may be, chronologically. You are an old soul. Allow that elder within the energetics. If you are sensitive to energetics, you can feel them getting stronger right now. And when you do, just allow your energy field, your wider self, to take you another level deeper within. Even if that feels kind of like you're falling asleep, you're dropping into a deep state where the energetics can work even more profoundly. I'm going to invite the magic to remind those parts of you your history. The history held within your genes, the history held within your energy field. The history held in your subconscious. relating to you, symbolically, metaphorically, what it is that you need to know, need to feel, to guide you, to help you. To lead you through your past to the future. For it does not benefit to merely release, throw away, get rid of the past, history. Whether personally or collectively. For that dismisses and diminishes it as unimportant, insignificant. The elders and the history that they held throughout time have never been viewed as such. So let us energetically sit at the feet of these elders. Listening, learning, again, those that are energy sensitive may be aware of a deepening again of the combined energetics in today's alchemical container. You may be experiencing it in your body, in your energy field. Allow for this deepening down and within. For although it may be channeling in through the most subtle levels, there can be profound benefits, shifts, awarenesses, resets. And aspects of your life and because of your presence and your allowance, opening to these energetics, there can be profound and rapid, magical change. In the collective experience. For you are so much more than you know. And are doing so much more than you are aware of throughout each day. For you are here on purpose, purposefully. And as always, should you choose to stay in the energetic experience right now, you are welcome to do so, knowing that you will be fully integrated, fully composed once you decide to return to a more physical experience in this 3D plane. Always remembering to drink huge amount of water after such an experience. Do not underestimate what occurred energetically. And please comment if you notice anything in the next couple days. Synchronicities, magical forms coming to you, or a sense of magic. Any references to Narnia, roses, or perhaps your own exploration with mythological creatures and beings, which were actually real creatures and real beings. And remember, on the 28th, we will be doing the pre-course for the upcoming 3-month program of personal and planetary redesign. And you should see that posted. I am going to be doing a meditation tomorrow. I believe it's at 12:30 here on Facebook for and on behalf of Ukraine. And I really invite you to join me and or post what you've been observing as far as energetics or what you feel the current theme is. And we'll see what arises. Because as those of you who have tuned in before know that this is a very in-the-moment work and practice. And it's determined by your presence, by what you bring. It's determined by what is currently in our world view, national view, cultural view, whatever culture you may be from, and what's going on with you personally, because that is directly influencing, directly evolving, directly affecting the larger picture. Please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions or anything arises energetically that you need help with. And as always, it is with the deepest of honor, gratitude, and love for your presence here on this planet. Until next time, be well.